It's Wrestling Observer Radio, the Friday edition. Garrett and Dave here. I guess we should lead off with some updates that you had in the newsletter concerning the injuries that had happened. You had an update on Chris Bay. And I guess a lot of folks, and I was wondering too, is just how come there's not more information about what's going on with him? It sounds like everyone is saying he's in really great spirits and considering what sounds to be like a really super serious injury.
Feels like it. Yeah. I mean, everything's been, I think everyone thinks they know something, but it's not, no one's really openly saying anything. But yeah, the feeling is that it's pretty serious, very serious, but nobody's really talking about it in detail past, I mean, he was, they shut down the show, so they had to be scared to death. He wasn't moving at that point. I don't know where everything stands as far as that goes now, but, Vikingo, obviously that situation wasn't bad at all. He was okay and joking, that night. And he said he's only going to be out for a couple of weeks. There's no ligament tear. There's no muscle tear. He just, his knee is swollen. That's about it. So, he's going to start, rehabbing as soon as the swelling in the knee goes down. So, his situation, he dodged a bullet, I guess you could say. Chris, I don't know anything, super significant about it other than, it was a serious injury. Serious enough to shut down the show. And there's big GoFundMe for Chris. And
I saw him not too long ago.
You went to a show here?
It was the Big Time Wrestling show. This would have been not the last one, but the one before.
Yeah, he works those shows sometimes. Yeah.
And my buddy who I went to the show with, Ben Cruz, who does a wrestling show on The Ringer. I guess Ben knew him from back in the day when, I think Chris was like one of his first interviews that he'd ever done. So he went over there and they were chatting it up. I mean, Chris seems like everybody seems to like him as far as personality and how he gets along with people. So I know, I know Ben and folks who know him are like, that there was a shock to hear about that. And so, just best wishes to him, obviously, on whatever recovery needs to happen here.
Yeah. I just hope I hope everything works out as well as it can.
So what about El Phantasmo? He's taken some time off.
Yeah. He has cancer. He didn't really go into detail of what it was, but it's serious enough. And, that's, it never comes at a good time. He was getting kind of a babyface push there, and hopefully it's not too bad, and he's able to make a full recovery as soon as possible. But that sucks. That's for sure. Just as you're, he's been chugging along for years and years and years on the independents. I mean, what's funny is he's 38, and I didn't know he was that old. But I do remember him from, Northwest Independence a long, long time ago. So it actually makes sense, but you didn't really I first heard about him. I heard the name, and then I think the first time I actually ever saw him wrestle was in England. And then, he got, for when he was living in England and working for all the promotions there. And then from England is where he got picked up by New Japan. He's very, very physically talented guy. Him and Will Ospreay in the G1 had an incredible match. And he's had a lot of good matches, but that one was pretty incredible that they had. So, he's real good with moves and balance and just athletically. And hopefully this will not hinder that, because that's his big calling card.
And another serious injury or illness that hasn't been covered as closely in this space, but you've been writing about it, which is Daiane Silva, the Bellator fighter.
Yeah.
And it sounds like at least there's some progress happening with her story.
She's not in a coma anymore. So that's better, but the last I heard, she was still hospitalized. And she's been hospitalized since September the 13th, I think. She was going to fight on the 14th. So it was the day of weigh-ins, I think, was when it happened. So, that's almost, we're coming up on almost 2 months. So that was really serious. That's another one. That one the promotion has gotten a lot of heat because they really just, they didn't even say anything about it until they were essentially shamed into saying something. And even then, it's just been, we're monitoring it daily and we have people looking out for her, but no details at all as to, how everything's going or what the situation is. So, the fact she's out of a coma is obviously good, but it's a long hospitalization for, I think her kidneys shut down cutting weight. She had to lose 22 pounds in like 2 weeks, but that's not unusual for a fighter. I mean, I remember talking to like Shayna Baszler, and this before she was in WWE and when she was fighting. And I don't know if you remember, but there was a thing, and I think it was on Real Sports, and I forgot who the woman was. It might have been Cyborg. But they showed them like going through, a 20-pound weight cut and just screaming and everything like that. And I remember I was at PWG, a couple of days later, and I saw Shayna and I brought it up, and she just goes, "That's everyone. That's not unusual. That's what we all do." So it's very, very, it's very tough on guys. It's often tougher on women because they're there's things that they're battling, especially if you're, in menstrual cycle trying to cut 20 pounds I heard it's just really, really difficult. So, that's the nature. I mean, the weight cutting, and it's another example. Something should be done. Everyone gives lip service to it. Nothing ever changes. I know like one, came up with this thing, but nobody really followed it. And I don't even know how successful they really were, because I just remember with one that you would have the honest people who would kind of fight at your normal weight without much weight cutting. And they were getting blasted by these people 15, 20 pounds heavier than them who, even though they're told not to cut, were still cutting.
Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things where, I know like my cousin was very, very adamant about it, because she worked with people on weight cutting.
Yeah.
And she saw it. And, she was, real adamant. I mean, the thing that I came up with, and it could never happen, for a lot of reasons, but my thought is that when you go and do your drug, when you get your surprise drug test in UFC, that when you get your test, you get weighed. Okay. And when you get weighed, you can, there's an allowable drop, but not a big one, like maybe, I don't know if it's 7 pounds or 10 pounds or something like that, but not 20, not even 15, and just go like, this is what you can drop. Like maybe you can get to the next lighter weight class, maybe you can't. And, the thing with the macho fighters go like, oh, that's part of being, having balls and being a fighter, is going in there and dropping 20 pounds or 18 pounds like the day before, and then waterlogging yourself and trying to gain 20 pounds back from weigh-ins to fight time and then come in big. That's just part of the thing, and nobody wants to, it's just part of it. I only say nobody wants to change it. It's just so entrenched in the business that nobody will change it. And because of that, we are always going to have occasional horror stories. We haven't had as many deaths from this. I mean, there have been deaths, and obviously, Silva it is a horrible, horrible story. They happen, they happen. Again, when I used to go to UFCs all the time, and I would, go through the hotel and see somebody, who's dropped all their water weight going to weigh-ins, and they have that zombie look, and it's just like, you can just look and just go, this isn't good. Or sometimes at weigh-ins, and people have had fights called off, like they're going on the scale and they're like shaking and they have no balance and they fall down and things like that. And then, then they sometimes get their, the fight canceled, and that's not a good thing either. But, I know, like the thing that I just said, people go, well, but you get out of shape between fights and everything. And it's like, maybe there's a point to this to where I don't know, it's just like maybe every fighter, it's like you don't need to gain 40 pounds between fights or 30 pounds between fights. You really don't, especially if you're a professional athlete. I mean, if you're a, baseball player during the season, just as an example, you're not going to gain 40 pounds during the season.
You lose weight because you're playing constantly and you're probably not eating as much as you need to eat because you're constantly on the road.
Right. But the point is that but you're doing that for 6 months. You know what I'm saying? It's like, maybe you just go in there like you're a professional athlete and this is your season, and you know that anytime you can get tested. So you've got to keep your weight, at a healthy weight, not a 20 pounds heavier than healthy, and then worry about it, the last 2 months while you're going in training camp and, cutting and training super hard, and then the weight comes off easier and everything like that. But maybe, I don't know. That's how I always thought. It's like, this is, you're 184 pounds. And it's like, well, you can't fight at 170. You can make 170, but you just can't, because we're not doing that shit, But like I said, there are many, many things that are wrong with combat sports. They're so entrenched in it. I know that they will never change. The people in charge don't really want to change. The commissions, look at rules. Look how hard it is to just change little rules. Never been able to fix judging after, 25 years. We still haven't been able to fix judging. The 10-point must system doesn't work in MMA. It never should, it had obvious flaws from day one, but you don't fix it. Just keep doing it because that's what you do. And then people cry about judges' decisions and all this. And it's like, I've judged fights. I haven't judged the fights under the 10-point must. Okay. I did judge before, but as far as like under the 10-point must, I will tell you that there are fights, but when I was like taking this, watching every show and everything, I judged every single fight and, by the rounds, by the 10-point must. And it's rare, I'd say 5%, maybe 3% of the fights where the guy I had winning at the 10-point must is not the guy who I thought won the fight. Mm-hmm. And that's the system. That's not the judging, And a lot of times when people complain about the judging of a fight that seems fishy, you go in there and go, well, this is 10-point must, and this round could have gone either way. And not all the time, but more than not, the judging based on 10-point must is not really that bad. It's just that the system has problems on close rounds. The close round means as much as a dominant round, because the judges are told not to give 10-8s, certainly never give 10-10s. But, it's like, that's just, it's something that's, I know it's never going to change. It's just something you put up with. And the weight cutting, it's like, we're going to have occasional casualties every year. There'll be a couple, not some, and there will be every couple of years, there will be a death or a issue like the Silva, where it's not a death, but it's a real bad health issue. It's just part and parcel of, the industry the way it is now.
You had a letter from a pro wrestling star from back in the day about the ring boy situation. I thought it was very well written.
It was very well written. Very interesting.
And people should definitely read it. But that's the mentality of someone who lived through that time frame back then. And I thought it was well written.
It's just a different time frame. And when you look back and you go like, this existed, how did it exist? Having grown up in that period of time, I know how and why it existed. Mm-hmm. That's not defending it. It's absolutely 100% wrong. But it was this, business that's, in many ways a very, very sleazy business, and everyone looked the other way. And also everyone protected the people in the business at all costs. Sometimes maybe it wouldn't have been a good thing to protect Mel Phillips and get rid of them. But it's like, that was just how the business was back then. It's horrible. But
and there was a great point in there in that
the letter was great. Yeah.
They basically paid him to keep him away and probably keep the secrets locked in a box in a way.
Mm-hmm. That's a giant part of the story, but it also makes them look so bad, when it comes to that lawsuit. Did you read the whole lawsuit or just the news stories on the lawsuit?
It took me a couple days, but I did read through it. It was more grisly than I thought it was going to be, for sure.
Yeah, it was the worst. The Janelle Grant one was very, very, very bad. I don't want to say one's worse or the other's worse. They're both really, really bad.
Yeah, but both make you feel ill reading them.
Yeah. The fact that they happened and I mean, with Janelle Grant, though, it's one person. It's a lawyer who's a tremendous advocate lawyer. I mean, I will say with Ann Callis, she's like a bulldog. She's a tremendous, she comes up with stuff just hammering him and hammering him and hammering him, constantly on everything the guy is thinking of doing. I mean, it's like, this is like her, it's almost like this is her big case and she's, whatever. But it's still like with Janelle Grant, it is one person. Okay. But with Mel Phillips, it's 5 people plus, I know other names that aren't in the suit, whether it's Tom Cole or other names that aren't in this thing. So I know that it's like that stuff I know is true. You know what I mean? It's not like that stuff's not made up stuff. Everybody knew it. When it's one person, you got to go, like, what is it exactly? I mean, again, like with the Vince thing, the one thing is that when you read the text messages, whether he should be, there's nothing in the text messages that necessarily tells you he should be indicted for something. There may be stuff, and she's probably putting the worst stuff out there. But absolutely, when you read the text messages, I don't even care how you frame them and go out of context or whatever. The one thing is that he shouldn't be running the company. He should not have been running the company. That is not behavior of someone running a company. What he's doing. There's not a defense for Vince. I mean, he may not be he may never get charged as far as the lawsuit goes. He already paid once, so you already know that's what, when push comes to shove, that's likely how it ends up. But like bringing him back, or and who knew what, which is really an important part of the story that we don't know is who knew what. I mean, it's when TKO bought the company, they knew enough to where buying it and then putting Vince. I mean, like when they merged that company, I mean, Vince was ahead of Dana, which surprised me, because I was like, at worst they should be equal, right? And I'm not saying Dana's an angel, or not, obviously he's not. But the thing is that Dana built his company from nothing, from absolutely nothing. $2 million company, that barely exists. Vince took professional wrestling, something that had been popular in the United States for decades and decades and decades. Dana built his company essentially as big and more profitable than Vince's company. So I bet, I take the guy who took something from scratch that never was big above the guy who took something that was huge for generations and made it bigger, as far as like who's the best promoter of the two. There's not a doubt in my mind Dana's the best promoter of the two. But, when they made that merger, I mean, Vince was Dana's boss, not the other way around. Mm-hmm. And they knew about the NDAs and all that when that decision was made. So you cannot really, you can't absolve, Shapiro and Emmanuel with this idea that they didn't know, because they knew enough. And I think they've been pretty much off the hook on this one for the most part, because everyone is just like, Vince is a horrible person type thing, and he's gone.
Nick Khan has done interviews where he was, joking about Vince being back or Vince leaving or whatever. Like he said he never thought Vince was really leaving, which contradicts what happened. But that's in the sense that they all voted for him not to come back, and then Vince did the power play and came back. And the only way Vince was able to come back was by selling the company, with the idea that if he sold the company, he would get a great position and he would be in charge. They promised him he would be in charge. They reneged on the promise, but they promised him he would be in charge. And that's why he made this specific deal, as opposed to maybe going somewhere else that offered, a lot more money. I mean, because they didn't offer any money. They offered, stock and things like that. And it's probably in a lot of ways the best people to be with, because I think that the synergy of UFC and WWE, because they're such similar businesses and people can work at both and cut down expenses, that it probably is, for all concerned, from a corporate standpoint, it's probably good to have them under the same umbrella, as opposed to one of the other suitors, buying it and then having to run it, separate. So there'd be a lot more jobs and things like that.
so the profit margin wouldn't be as big. So, and everything like that. So for Vince, like he made the call that from a stock standpoint and everything and a profit standpoint was going to benefit him the most. And he got to keep power, except he didn't get to keep power.
Well, when it comes to who knows what, I don't imagine Stephanie is throwing her own dad under the bus, but she made decisions based on whether he was there or not.
It appears that way, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The other thing too is we still don't know who the person on the board of directors was that talked to the Wall Street Journal. And and that's always.
I mean, how would we find out? Do you think that would ever come out in any way?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I
don't think so. Unless the only way it would is if somebody dies and the authors just go, well, now that he's dead, we can say.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way I could think of. Because as long as he's still alive, like if it was me in that situation, as long as they're still alive, there's no way. If he's dead, I don't, him still may be no way. I don't know. That's the decision becomes more difficult at that point. But as long as they're alive, they can't. But that doesn't. But I think that's a very, very important part of the story, because whoever that person was, I think, is the key to a lot of stuff that actually happened.
The one last thing about the Ring Boy situation is, as I was reading the lawsuit, this is only in Maryland. So you have these 5 adults now adults in Maryland who have come forward. And it just made me think, like, how many times do we have to multiply to get to what the total number was of all the kids who were abused?
Right, because if you were not abused in the state of Maryland, you could not be due to venue part of the suit. And I would guess, as an educated guess, because Mel Phillips lived in Pennsylvania, that and the WWE, yes, they ran Baltimore and Cap Center. They were regular stops and other smaller places, but the bulk of the stuff would be New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, maybe even Massachusetts. New England and everything. It wasn't, I would think, based on like some of the stories about Mel Phillips, the guy basically cruising the streets looking for kids playing, baseball in the streets type of thing. And, are you a wrestling fan here? Here, look at this. This is Bruno's belt or whatever. You know what I mean? I can get you backstage at these shows. And that's something too for the company, because man, you were not allowed backstage at those shows. I know Heyman talked his way in, but he was press. He talked his way into being press, but he was press. But it's not like people were allowed backstage at wrestling shows. That dressing room was you're either in the club, and very few were allowed in the club in those days. You're either in the club or you're not allowed. You're certainly not allowed backstage to see these guys, how they really were, or close to how they really were.
Mm-hmm. You also had an update on the Rock and WrestleMania story that I wonder if he's going to go on social media and reply to somebody again.
Yeah, he may. But the thing is, it's like they didn't advertise him for the show. That tells you all you need to know. If he's on the show and confirmed on the show, his poster, his face is front center, not Roman Reigns, not Cody Rhodes. Maybe the 3 of them, but Dwayne's still the biggest one. He's in the center. They're on the sides, smaller photos. He was not in the promotional material. So therefore, I knew it, but it was kind of like I knew it. I talked about it. He said what he said. And it was just like, okay, whatever. I think, it's like, it's like again, afterwards I checked and it's like, has something changed? Has he agreed to do it? And it's like, no. And then, once the ad came out, it's like, okay, the ad's out. There's your answer. Doesn't mean he won't do it. It's up to him and his schedule and what he wants to do, and how he wants to spend the first couple of months of the year, what kind of shape he thinks he can get in. He has the time. It's all up to him. Unfortunately for the company, their biggest show of the year. They do have to, you know what I mean? It's like they have to make multiple plans, because they have to make the plans for him and they have to make the plans for not him. Because, again, because he's The Rock. And look, that's happened historically with a lot of big, same thing happened with Hogan and Austin and other big draws. That just the nature of the business and everything. But yeah, you know, I mean, as far as like what stories are they going to tell for WrestleMania, you know, they have to wait for him to decide, because at the end of the day, his thing, I mean, if he's doing it, it's the main event.
And he's not doing a 8-minute main event. He's going to want to do a 30-minute main event or a 25.
Well, he certainly did. He did like 40 minutes plus, right?
Yeah,
that match went forever on the Saturday match. That doesn't mean he'll want to go forever this year, but yeah, but yes, as far as that goes, I don't think he would come back for an 8-minute main event. Would he come back for a 2-minute Eric Rowan thing if he's doesn't have time to train? I think so, but it wouldn't be the main event. It would just be a spot on the show, you know.
Yeah.
Just to, you know, I could see him do that because he did it with Eric Rowan, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's like I expect that he'll be at the show in some form. But if it was 100%, they'd have advertised him even if he wasn't in the main event.
Right. Crown Jewel is Saturday early, tomorrow, so you'll be able to get morning. your WWE out of the way.
You know, there really is something kind of cool about these UFC and WWE shows in Europe and the Middle East, in the sense of it doesn't tie up a Saturday night. You just get it done in the morning and you've seen it and it's over. You know, I never would have said that before. I would have thought, oh, it's so bad because, you know, I mean, who wants to get up and you know, yeah, of course the hardcores will want to get up, but the average person, they're going to watch sports. You know what I mean? They're going to watch sports in prime time for the most part, unless it's football, which has different rules. And, you know, the nature of the streaming and everything, it's like they don't care about live viewership, you know, the streaming. And I mean, I know like with Peacock, it's like they are concerned about the 24-hour number. So, you know, if people watch it live, cool. If they go out and spend a day doing other stuff and watch it in prime time later that night, that's cool too. And because of that, you know, it's not like if it was pay-per-view, where if it was pay-per-view, if it's not live, most people are not going to buy a pay-per-view after it's over. I mean, some will, obviously, because there are late buys, but most people, once they know the results and everything, they're really not going to pluck down $50. Will they watch a TV show knowing the results? Absolutely, but that's free. It's a different mentality.
Mm-hmm. You know, when I was doing my research for the Halloween Havoc, the very first Halloween Havoc, Paul and I talked about it last night on Fight Game. I didn't realize this, but the very first Halloween Havoc is only a little while after the Loma Prieta earthquake. And so the earthquake
in 89, yeah, I was in Philadelphia for it. I remember that. But
what happens is because the World Series would have been wrapped up by the time of the pay-per-view, but the World Series gets pushed out, and Halloween Havoc has to go head-to-head with Game 4 of the World Series, which I didn't even realize or know until I was doing the research.
You know, I would have known, but I didn't even, I just never even thought of it.
Yeah, so that even back then, you know, they're trying to program away from giant sporting events. And even back then, if anyone has that 89 Observer book and is reading it, you're constantly writing about the NFL hurting those Sunday syndication shows or the Sunday cable shows. And so, you know, people kind of think that this rating stuff with competition is brand new, but no, you're writing.
Well, I mean, I remember the one thing that I remember was those unusually high WCW Saturday numbers when they followed NASCAR on TBS, where, you know, you would get like this number that was like 30% above usual. And that's, I think, when I learned it, was just like, you know, 30% above usual. What happened? And then I find out, yeah, they came right after NASCAR. And like at that point, you know, because I'm talking, this is 1980s. Like, I'm aware of NASCAR, but, you know, like I NASCAR wasn't one of the sports that I really followed. And I never, like, NASCAR was really big in the Southeast, and WCW was more Southeast. So it meant more than, like, say, here, where, you know, how big is NASCAR here? I mean, it exists and everything, but it was way more fervent and everything there. So, like, in that day and age, in that time frame, the audience that TBS got as a primarily Southeastern station, NASCAR was a really big deal, bigger than I really could understand living here. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You know what? You mentioned NASCAR. I was just reading an interview, and who was it from? The president, Steve Phelps, was being interviewed, and they basically started by saying, ratings were down, and yet you guys got a much bigger deal than the previous deal.
Everyone did. Yeah. And WWE, AEW, everyone did. Yeah.
And the one
and NHL did. NBA, NBA was down. The only one, the NFL's the only one that, for whatever reason, all the laws and all the rules don't apply to the NFL. And I can't even explain why, but they just don't. But everybody else, WWE's doing great. So they've been managed to stave off a lot of the decline, especially under 50, because they're so much stronger than they were a couple of years ago, which is why they staved off the decline. It's not like they're at the same level and staved off the decline. They're way, way, way more popular. So they staved off the decline. But even over 50, they've been down since SummerSlam. Was it 2023 or 2022? I'm trying to remember the SummerSlam where they just hit that over 50 wall, and they've never gotten that one back. So that's why in a lot of cases you'll see total viewers down, but the percentage of the viewers being in 18 to 49 is way up. So like with AEW, where AEW is valuable, where WWE is valuable, where the NBA is valuable, where soccer is valuable, is that it draws the younger viewers. And NASCAR, which will have way more total viewers, they'll have these giant viewer numbers, and the 18 to 49 numbers are very, very small. Baseball's the same way, except obviously the World Series being the exception. But baseball skews very old. Hockey's probably a little older than wrestling. NBA is probably around the same as wrestling, maybe even younger. But most of the NFL skews old, but there's so damn many people watching NFL that it doesn't matter essentially.
Yeah. And the one thing that they mentioned in the piece was that, and it's very similar to what happened with the NBA, where they had basically been on 2 networks, and then they expanded out to 5 different places to watch, and then you bring the streamers in and you bump up your price, and that's how you get there. So you and Brian will be back after Crown Jewel.
So I guess people are being cut as we speak.
I've seen Baron Corbin. I guess he tweeted out, and I've seen Sean Ross Sapp report Tegan Knox as well. Yes, those
are the names that I have texted here, are Baron Corbin and Tegan Knox. It's interesting. Like Tegan Knox, it's like they hadn't used her in so long, and Baron Corbin was used well in NXT, but ever since he went to the main roster, they did a couple of things. I could see, there's certainly guys, that, again, like Vinci. God, I don't like to jinx anybody, but where, you know what I mean? Like they just got, as soon as Vinci got, the thing with Kaiser, when they split them up, I thought, Vinci's done. And they tried to remake him, but they sure didn't really try. They did a bunch of videos, and then they beat him right away, and then they beat him again, and then they just basically took him off TV. So, you could see that they don't really have any plans. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Corbin. Personality wise, he's got something.
Yeah.
I don't know if he fits with AEW, but I know that he doesn't. It's not. It's not like it's somebody like.
I've also seen Indi Hartwell.
Indi Hartwell, who's wrestling on tonight's show. Yeah, I just saw that.
She was just on TV with all the Candace stuff.
She's on tonight's SmackDown wrestling.
Oh, she's in a match.
She's in a match. Indi Hartwell and Candace against Naomi and Bayley on tonight's SmackDown show. Yes. So, but again, no surprise. Indi Hartwell's an issue. She's not a great wrestler, but she's. I think that she's a great. I don't know if actress is the right word, but as someone in angles and everything like that, she did very well in NXT. Not necessarily in the ring though. If you have like a skit promotion, a heavy skit promotion, I think she's. I think she could be very good, but in the ring, I don't know. Again, it's Tony can give, I don't know what where Tony's gonna, what he's gonna think, and he does have a lot of money right now, but at the same time, it's like his roster's already way too big. again, we'll probably talk later about Ring of Honor. I could see them, if he gets a paying deal for Ring of Honor, that's worth something. But again, like with Corbin, just an example, I think Corbin, again, it's his mentality. Some people want to be wrestlers. Corbin actually made a lot of money because he was on top for a while. So he may think he's worth a ton, and it may be more than he's going to be worth to AEW or Ring of Honor or whatever. But he is a known name, but you don't want to, there's that fallacy of known name thing that usually, most times ends up backfiring when companies do it. I mean, it really, unless he fits in, unless you got a great idea for an angle, he fits into something that you do, like a Ricochet. The getting of the people. I mean, it just depends. Each situation's different, but it's yeah.
And they're not going to be, letting someone's contract lapse or actively cutting them who they believe the other side is going to be able to do something really strong with either.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, so let's actually we do have one super chat that is WWE related that I wanted to get to. From Eddie, said Dave mentioned possibly John competing for the title. That was an idea that you had in the Observer. Do you think
it's more than my idea? Let's put it that way. Yeah.
He said.
I mean, I came up with it, so to speak. As I'm, going like, what would you do if you were in that spot? And it was basically, oh yeah, you're, same exact conversations. So it's, again, I don't know that it's going to be John Cena against Cody Rhodes or Gunther or whatever. But the idea of John Cena going for the championship and breaking Ric Flair's record at WrestleMania is absolutely something under discussion. Whether it happens, who knows? But, it's something. It's kind of a weird one though, because it's like, everyone knows it's a fake record, but I guess for wrestling fans, it probably doesn't matter because they've been told something over and over and over again. And they went for that record before, if you remember, and they did the big angles around it when Cena failed to win it.
Yeah. And if you are looking at like the future of the company, if you want, that Google question, who has the most titles, they would probably rather it say John Cena than Ric Flair. Like, just if you're looking at it from that perspective.
Now, because they want to market John Cena as the greatest of all time. So this is your thing. He's got more titles than anyone else. He's the greatest of all time. It's like, I don't know how in any way, shape, or form John Cena is the greatest of all time at all. Was he the best in the ring of all time? Not even close. Was the biggest draw of all time? No, not even close. He's one of the all-time greats. That's not a knock on him, but greatest of all time is like a singular person, and he's not that singular person.
Not the way the kids use it in the vernacular these days, though.
The GOAT?
They talk about their goats, plural. It's like, that can actually work that way, but I guess.
Yeah.
Well, the second part of Eddie's question was, if you thought there were too many part-timers in the title picture, he's mentioning John and possibly Rock and Roman, and if they need more folks who are on television.
Well, not as much now, because the house show business is not even a priority. If the house show business is a priority, you want to focus on the people who are doing your house shows. When it's the pay-per-view business, and it's not even the pay-per-view business, when it's the TV business, you do stuff to jack up TV ratings. And the special guests, if they have the ability to jack up ratings, you go with them. Now, do you do it at the expense of the current guys? That's bad, doing that. So there is a line of like, yeah, let's bring back, Rock and Austin and Cena all at the same time. And then, you kind of have a thing where when they leave, or Bill Goldberg or Undertaker, and then when they're all gone, it's kind of like, you don't want, it's like, while you're doing this, you still have to make the current guys focal. With Rock, the key to Rock is that whether it happened or didn't happen or whatever, and it did happen, the fact is that Rock did make Cody bigger, and that's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
John Cena come in, works with Gunther, or let's just throw a name out. Doesn't make Gunther bigger. Now with Austin Theory, obviously it didn't work. It doesn't always work. With Cody and Rock, it did work. So every situation.
Cena was also not in the main event. During that WrestleMania, that LA WrestleMania,
no.
Like a mid-card program. This is going to be a main event kind of.
Yeah, and then Cena with Solo. That wasn't a main event either, and that was just there to get Solo over as a big monster. And I don't know that really worked. I don't want to say it failed because Solo was being pushed really hard, but I don't know that people even think about Solo destroying John Cena anymore.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things that happened. They probably at the time thought it's going to be so long before Cena's back. And it was all about the guy, going out. You know what I mean? It's the guy going out trying to put the future over. And Solo was the guy they wanted for the future. It was at the moment they did it. It was classic what you do.
He's going to have to get some big wins if he's going to get in that program, whether it's winning the Royal Rumble or whatever. Because the last couple of years, he just comes in to lose matches, and that's been his role.
Yeah. You have to make it to where last chance for the championship, but that's what they'll do. We already know it's last WrestleMania is going to be John's last WrestleMania is going to be part of the promotion of the show.
Mm-hmm. Okay, the Jericho promo. You wrote about the Jericho promo where he shouted you out and he talked about people not understanding the wrestling business. And I don't know. You wrote that deal's not done until it's done, but the idea of an ROH TV deal is out there, and so it sounds like there are active talks for
there are definitely active talks as far as like where they are. It's again, I'm sure it's not like giant money, but they don't need giant money for this one. Any money is a plus. I don't expect it would. The AEW Collision and Rampage shows are not drawing giant numbers. If you put, Ring of Honor out there, I don't think the numbers are going to be particularly good. But maybe for, by the standards of True TV and what they normally get, can they beat those numbers? Very possibly. I don't know. There's enough wrestling. There's no clamor for more wrestling, but there's a lot of stations that are still in business right now. They're looking for something that's a consistent draw. And wrestling, can be that even, for a small station. Even like TNA, right? TNA is still the number one show on Access and the only show on Access that ever does, 90,000 viewers. Mm-hmm. But as long as there's an Access, you want your number one show. It's worth something to you if you got a station.
Do you know what they would do with that streaming service? Would Tony just want to keep it around just because they've actually put stuff on there? I'm sure it's all part of the deal. It's things to be worked out. You've got to figure out effectiveness and everything like that. I think that they will use that for the library but if he makes a deal where the ROH library goes to Max and then shuts down, ROH, if the money's right, of course you can make that deal. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean he will. But it's a possible deal point if they want to spend for more content. How many people are going to watch that old ROH stuff? Probably not as much as we would have thought, like 7 years ago. But maybe it's worth it for Max to be like a, something for hardcore. I don't know. Well, the other thing about that is WBD specifically has been in the news for not wanting all of this library content because they don't think it's valuable even to, I guess, the hosting space to have it up. So that is an interesting part of it too. They may not eyeballs. Does it even need to be up there?
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing too is with this great deal that AEW got. For the next 3 years, they're safe. But they have to perform, and they don't have to just perform on television. They have to perform on that streaming service too. If people don't go up on that library and watch the old stuff with any numbers, that will affect the next round of negotiations and the value that they see in that product.
What do you think that split's going to be when it comes to how many people watch on Max versus how many people watch through cable or other?
Look, we can look at the NFL or Major League Baseball. I mean, it's not much watching on these other services. It's really not. People are thinking that it's like, oh, now it's going to be this big turnaround. We'll see. I mean, obviously there are entertainment shows that do very, very well on streaming, including some that have beaten what they do on television. But when it comes to sports, whether it's, UFC or whatever, when it's on, like all the sports that are on TV and streaming, people choose TV. They don't really choose streaming. There are exceptions, but it's, maybe 10%, maybe it's 15%. I mean, 15%, maybe that's a good enough number. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But the idea that it'll double, that now there'll be 1.5 million people watching. I don't see it.
The rating came out, and I know you didn't have a lot of details when you published, but more details are out today.
Yeah, I put a story up on the site that I normally would put in the issue, because I had been told in the afternoon that there's going to be no ratings till the morning, and then late at night, Programming Insider did get the ratings. So I had to rush and change a whole bunch of stuff late.
What was the delay, by the way?
I don't know. And I mean, I think most people thought the rating was very good, because look, World Series was 18.6 million viewers, and they pretty much did the same number that they did, the week before, which, so that speaks great. But it was, some people go, oh, it's the same. Baseball didn't affect it. It's like, actually, this week's show had been built up for weeks. It was a much stronger show. So it would have done more, but the World Series put it back to, where it basically has been, where it was last week. So, but I think that as far as going against the World Series of 0.19, I expected lower, so I considered a good number. And if you look at where it was, there's still, I think that the thing when it comes to AEW, I think the comparison is Challenge. When they get beat by Challenge, which I think has happened once or twice, since this new season started, then I consider that probably not a great number. But when they beat Challenge, they're still the number one. They're beating every. They're not going to beat the NBA at this stage of the game. Although NBA numbers are obviously way down this year, but they're not going. But you know what? So again, this is whatever. I mean, one of the reasons the ratings were so high last year, you remember the beginning of last season with the guy in San Antonio, right? Wembayama.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why the ratings were so big at the beginning of last year. So you're comparing to that, and now, yeah, they're way, way down. But they're not beating the NBA, and they're not beating Fox News. Well, guess what? We got an election in days. An election down to the wire. So yeah, they're probably not going to beat Fox News this week. They're probably not going to beat it next week, the day after the election. Whether there's a winner, there's not a winner. That's going to hurt AEW a lot. I think more than NXT. For whatever reason, the news doesn't hurt NXT as much. And also, there's also a very logical reason too, because being a network station, while a lot of the homes that get CW will get Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, a lot of them don't. It is a different skew. Every home that gets TBS pretty much gets CNN, pretty much gets MSNBC, pretty much gets Fox News. So every home that AEW faces, it's head-to-head competition the day after a major presidential election. They're going to get hurt a lot. I don't know if they're going to get hurt as bad as the baseball game, but it could be worse. It depending on where the election stands, it could be worse. For NXT, they're going to have 20 million homes that, if the election's down to the wire, probably like NBC and those people, the regular networks will probably have something too, and it will hurt them. But still, when it comes to, the major, the place people go to for their news, as sad as this is Fox News. Mm-hmm. If you really look at this more than anybody else, and Fox News is head-to-head competition with AEW, and they didn't head-to-head competition with the CW.
You know, Amazon is running a live election special with Brian Williams hosting. So there's another one. I don't imagine they're going to do crazy numbers, but it is another one. All right, so you kind of were teasing the AEW and NXT head-to-head. AEW doesn't seem to be treating this like a special show.
No, not at all. Nothing special. It's like I was really surprised. I thought that they would gear up, and it's just like they've got whatever their plans are going into this pay-per-view. They're just going in that direction. There's nothing on this show where I look at it, what Adam Cole and Malachi Black. I mean, it's fine. I mean, the show's probably going to be good, but I think the big thing now is just, can this Moxley thing really click? Can he pull this one off? Because it's really him. I mean, he's the focal point of this thing, the promos, the angle. Tony usually does his own stuff, and this, of course he has input into this, but Moxley's getting a lot of, he's getting a lot of what he wants, and we'll see how that goes. If that thing clicks, I mean, they're hoping, obviously the one thing with AEW for a long time is they've done a lot of things hoping that this will be the key to a turnaround, and none of it has been. And this is the latest one, and we'll see how it goes. So
you mentioned that this thing is Moxley. What do you think about kind of the verbiage that he's using in these promos? Because when I watched on Wednesday, Orange Cassidy cutting the babyface promo, the serious babyface promo, he got a little goofy near the end of it. But then Moxley comes out, and I'm expecting him to cut this like really dastardly promo, and I'm listening to the words, and I'm like, some people may take that for a babyface promo, but I don't think it's meant to be.
It's not meant to be a babyface promo now, but maybe it's meant to be in 18 months or 12 months.
But what he's saying isn't necessarily like he's kind of sticking up for himself as like, helping build this company and people are living off of it and they don't do half the work that I do. Like that's not necessarily a dastardly heel in my book.
No, it's still, it's still running down the roster, and it creates conflict and everything. But you're right. But they do heal things. I mean, if you look at
the actions are very
plastic bag and everything like that. I mean, those are definitely heel things.
The and the dynamics of this, whenever there's some sort of battle, the dynamics are like 11 baby faces against 4 heels.
Yeah.
And so that kind of leans there as well. They look like the bigger badasses than these baby faces. So I think they need to hurry up and change those dynamics pretty shortly.
It's hard when you've got 4 people, but they're trying to take over an entire company. It was the same thing that happened with the NWO. And, what created was, I mean, the NWO had great short-term success. But
they also had the top guy in the entire industry leading.
Absolutely. But, and also, they did in the long run damage it greatly because they damaged the WCW brand. And the key, like here, is, and they all know it. I think, is that they can't damage the AEW brand. If they damage the AEW brand, they're making a big mistake. They have to make sure not to do that. They can damage some of the AEW wrestlers, but they do have to make, one of these guys, Darby, whatever, Orange Cassidy, if it's the Young Bucks when they come back, or Omega, or whatever.
Okay, so the Young Bucks are a great example. How many months ago was it that they tombstoned Tony?
It was the week of the NFL draft. It wasn't that long ago.
So, like, I understand that we're pivoting and we're kind of moving towards a different direction, but like that wasn't that long ago to just forget and all of a sudden.
Oh yeah, no, I know, and it's really, you went from being the guys who were trying to ruin the company or take control from Tony Khan, and then it just went nowhere.
They got replaced by another group who's better at ruining the company, I guess.
Yeah. And Tony's not, but they're not doing an angle with Tony at all. Like you don't see Tony, being a coach backstage or anything. Tony's not in this angle. Doesn't mean he won't be, but so far he hasn't been. So, but yeah, as far as, for the Young Bucks to then go back babyface and lead the charge against the BCC, that's a real weird one, because it feels like it's way too soon for that.
And if they do that, I didn't like them running away. I know it's their heels now and they're going away or what. But if we're going to play back them coming back as the heroic baby faces, I did not like them running away.
Yeah, but here's the other problem too. For Young Bucks and Okada, it's like when Kenny Omega comes back, Kenny Omega probably should be the guy. More than Darby, more than Orange Cassidy, he probably should be the guy. And everything's been built up for Okada and Omega and Young Bucks against Okada. And you can't really run away from that because, it's just like they've already shot those angles. And it'd just be like, Omega teaming up with the Young Bucks again. I mean, yeah, in 18 months you can do it and all that. But I think it should take like 18 months. Anything quicker. And it's just kind of like, it's just too soon. So, yeah, I have to watch how this all plays out. But no, I mean, like the Young Bucks are going to be gone for at least a little while. And so whatever that means when they come back and how they're going to come back and what's it going to be. But you're right. If they were going to come back as baby faces, then you've kind of like, what about the feud with Kenny Omega? What about Okada and Omega? So it's like, and
he's still mentioning them in his promo stuff. Like,
he sure is. Well, I mean, we all think it's Omega and Tanahashi against the Young Bucks on January 5th. That's certainly the feeling, which is going to be tough. Maybe it won't be that tough. I don't know. I just think that, Tanahashi, just in the state he's in, I know he's a genius in the ring and everything, but the Young Bucks and Omega work that very, very athletic style. And Tanahashi, can't really move.
Yeah, but so they did it with Sting. Like, they're the masters at that.
I know. And they do it with everyone. I mean, they are the ones. I mean, it's like people get mad at me for saying this, but I mean, I learned this a long time ago in PWG, and many people in wrestling have told me the same thing, that when you watch somebody against the Young Bucks, you cannot fairly judge how good they are, because if you judge them with the Young Bucks, they're usually not as good as you think, and I mean, look, if you watch Private Party on Wednesday night, I mean, what do you think, man? These guys are awesome. Best babyface tag team that we've seen in a long, long time, right?
Well, the first thing that I thought was...
But they're not.
They're not going to be wrestling the Young Bucks every week, so I hope that there's a really good plan for them. That's my immediate thought.
Especially as champions, yeah.
The other thing about the Young Bucks, and I've heard this criticism, which I think is fine, which is that for some taste, the match was a little indulgent with all the kickouts. But my perspective was, well, the story was that nobody thought, or very few people thought, Private Party was actually going to win. So if you go into that match with that idea, all of that indulgent stuff is just heel stuff that worked in the end.
Yeah. When it comes to that, I always go with, did it work? Like the pop at the end. Did it work? Yeah, it did. Will the exact same thing in 6 months work the same way? Probably not. But I mean, that's the key. That's the Terry Funk key to working. It's like, you don't do the same thing every time. You figure out what's going to work on that night. And you're never going to be 100% right. But the good guys, the best guys, are going to be right more than they're wrong. They're going to be right more than other guys are right. And, you adapt. I mean, today, it's such a weird, long, almost lost art, in the sense of now everyone kind of does routines. And even the Young Bucks, it's like the Young Bucks are great at visualizing a match and laying out a match and everything like that. They're fantastic at it. And it usually works. Are there times where it doesn't work perfectly? The crowd's not into it. You get a different kind of crowd. Yeah, I mean, occasionally, but it's not that often. It's really not that often. But like on this one, it's like on this one, I can't say that, because at the end of the day, that match was way better than I expected it to be. And it kept getting better. You know what I mean? Like 10 minutes in, was it a great match? Nah, I mean, it was good. It was definitely good. 18 minutes in was it a great match? Yeah, it's like one of the best tag team matches of the year. So that just tells you that how they built the match worked on that night. And that's, to me, that's the key.
And there's a lot of us who, once they hit that VP trigger or whatever they call it, the double knees, we're like, yep, I knew it. And then it wasn't the finish.
And then it wasn't. Yeah. Yeah. And they saved that. You know, they haven't prostituted that move very often. Usually it's someone who saves, you know what I mean? So, yeah, I mean, that's what the whole thing was, is that they led you down something you thought you knew, and then it didn't happen. And that's why the pop when Private Party won was so big.
So the NXT side of this, we have the ECW thing. So they are treating it like a special show, and they kind of have to, because they're coming off of their day and they're going to AEW's day. So they have to treat it special. Yeah.
AEW absolutely has that advantage, and it may be too big to overcome for NXT, is that NXT, like, and we'll know when the number comes out. If the NXT number is anywhere near what it did this last week was going to the World Series, so whatever, it's probably going to be bigger than that. But if NXT does, let's say 0.16, 0.17, I think that's a big success, not on your day. But if it does over a 0.20, then that's a home run, and then that's the ECW thing, because a normal show change times, it's going to cost you a good 20%, maybe more. And if they can avoid that, that speaks volumes for the theme. But that's why they're doing the theme. They weren't going to go in with a regular show. And I mean, I don't know, getting into Paul's mind on this one, is there this mentality of, I don't want to send Punk and Randy Orton down there, because what if we lose because we're not on the right day? Like, when it was the one before, when Randy Orton's there, it's like they're on their own day. Yeah. Plus AEW had a bad start time, and all those things. AEW just got a terrible number that night. But they had the big advantage. Everyone look on the last one. Everyone knew that NXT was going to win that night. Everybody knew. So it wasn't a big risk to send Randy Orton there to go in, and all the other people. It wasn't like it was just Randy Orton. They had a whole bunch of people. But if they go in there and load this thing up, but it's not on their night and they do lose, it is a loss. If they send a bunch of ECW guys there and they lose, it's like, ECW is 25 years ago. And you know what I mean? It's a very strategic way to have a shot, if it clicks and wins, that we won, but completely saves face if we lose. So I mean, from a politician standpoint, when I heard about them going to the ECW arena, and I knew that they'd run a bunch of ECW guys on the show, I actually thought it was freaking brilliant. Mm-hmm. I really did, because it's like, you're looking at how people evaluate it. It's not about the number and everything. It's about the evaluation of the number for the week. And so, I mean, he looks like a genius if they win, and if they lose, it's like, it's Bubba Ray Dudley. You know what I mean? How, what do you expect? Bubba Ray Dudley hasn't been on our real TV in how long?
This is a not serious question, but did Bubba Ray Dudley get paid in how many times he could mention Busted Open Radio on NXT? Like, goodness, he mentioned it like 4 or 5 times.
And Dave LaGreca and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, obviously, he I'm sure he asked, and I'm sure they said okay, but they're looking, they're looking at that. They're definitely, their strategy when it comes to media, it's a very good strategy from a business standpoint, but it also has really exposed, not all. I mean, there's unbiased, whatever. I mean, there is unbiased wrestling media, and there are some people in wrestling media that are very good. There are the exceptions, not the rules. But the ones that are not the ones that they're going after. Those are the ones that they're probably, trying not to, get at these press conferences, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Or I don't mean me on this one, because I haven't tried or anything, but maybe not, I do mean John Pollock, as far as, I think John Pollock does a great job, and they've twice not let him into the thing. Now, they did let Brandon Thurston in, so they have their reason. I asked, it's like, we let Brandon in, it's like, so it's not like we're banning people who are negative, but, it's, I don't know, like, again, I don't know where everything stands, but.
Well, I mean, when you can buy a ticket that lets you into the press conference, Like, I mean, that says enough. Like, I don't even need to hear any more about
Well,
it.
I mean, it's funny because when I watch the press conference, it's like, and I've been asked many times, to come and everything. It just doesn't work out. But it's like, when I like with the AEW and the guys in character and everything, I kind of like go in this thing of like, I'll sit through the guys in character, and at the end, I get to talk to Tony or if it's Bryan Danielson or somebody who's, not going to be so much in character, then that's a positive.
Okay, now I haven't talked to you about this, but you brought up this point, and this is the reason, at least in my personal opinion, why nobody asked Mariah a question that night is because they knew she was going to be in character, and they knew she was going to do some sort of reply, and you were going to go viral, and you were going to look like an idiot because that is her character. Mm-hmm. And I saw so many people on Twitter attacking the reporters for not saying anything, and I was like, "This is why they don't want to look like a fool." I wouldn't
have asked a question to her. I just wouldn't have. It's because what are you getting? I wouldn't ask when does Tony Storm. I'll watch. It's like I'll sit there and watch it, and if she says something, that's cool. But it's like I don't. There's only a couple people there. The ones who I think are going to give you good answers are the ones that you're gonna ask. And I mean, with WWE, it's just. I mean, they don't want real questions. I mean, you can just tell by the reaction.
I mean, they're going to keep getting them though by the few. It's going to be a few, but they need to have better answers for those real questions than Triple H has had.
Yeah, Paul hasn't done the best. But the one about the black representation, it's a tough one, but it wasn't a good answer. Sure.
I didn't think it was tough at all. Like
I did. I thought, like, if you asked me that, what would I say? And it's like, it's not that easy for me.
Well, I mean, I would have said something to the effect of, look at some of the characters who we have in good positions, like Trick and some of you can mention the positives and say, it's not perfect. We're constantly working towards that, and we have work to do. And we have our eye on the ball. Like, you could say things like that.
That was definitely a better answer than he gave.
That are not so defensive, right? Because he's actually taking that as a personal accusation in his answer.
But here's the thing. I mean, nobody wants to be called racist, especially when you believe that you're not. And it becomes that accusatory thing. It's just like, oh God, because I'm sure he's sitting there going like, okay, it worked out. And they're going like, when was the last black male? And it's kind of like, oh my God, you have to phrase it this way because you can't say, you can't include women because we've been pushing Jade and Bianca, right? So you can't say that. So you're already twisting that question. But yeah, he obviously could have given a better response and didn't.
All right, we have a couple of questions here. Eddie has another super chat, and he says, Brian, I think he means Brian Alvarez, not Brian Danielson, said yesterday that Raw being 2 hours, it's not the same fluid show because they have too much talent. 3 hours is where you can utilize most of them. Do you think AEW needs a 3 hour show or a brand split?
Okay, as far as 3 hour show, absolutely not. As far as a brand split, I would not go with a hard brand split. As far as having guys do programs on one show and only one show each week, and not on the other show, yeah. But you go back and forth and things like that. Like, if just say two people have a program, and the idea is you do it on Collision week in and week out, and it's only on Collision, it's not on Wednesday. I get that. And I actually think that's a good idea. But, at times it's like, you don't want to limit, like, oh, this is a Collision guy, so now we can't put him against a Dynamite guy. And it's just like, no, you try to figure out what's going to work and all that. But I mean, as far as, so that's what I would say about a brand split, in the sense of hard brand split. No, the idea of having separate programs on different shows where they're the focal point of a different show. I do think that you can do that one.
I almost think that you need to have certain acts that are on both shows every week. Like,
well,
Moxley,
John Moxley's going to probably be on both shows every
yeah, I think he needs to. If that is your main through line of a story for the entire company, like he needs to be on both shows.
If he's not on a show, it becomes a B show.
Yeah,
because he's the focal point and the biggest angle, and I mean, they just need some, they need some hot baby faces. And we've been saying that for a long time, and they've had, they tried with Swerve, and Swerve's doing something now with Lashley. So Samoa Joe is going to be back soon. I wonder how
Ospreay's got to be back at some point, but he's tied up with Fletcher.
Yeah. But at some point, Ospreay and John Moxley have to feud.
Yeah.
Within the next year, absolutely have to feud. And Moxley's, that's probably the guy, that, or certainly one of the guys that may be the guy that you use to be your superhero. Certainly one of the guys where maybe he gets the win over Moxley. Certainly not soon, but I could see like maybe, like next year it's not going to be in Wembley, but maybe next year in England on All In or wherever All In, maybe at the stadium show, because in Arlington, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But the idea of, building him and building that chase, like the Sting run, before, and then, luckily I don't think Moxley's going to get mad at him for not having a tan and ruin that program. But, I could see, a long build of somebody, and he's not the only one who could do it. I think you could probably put Swerve in there. I wouldn't go with Joe in that role just because of the age thing. But I think that Joe could be a pay-per-view challenger though, and have a run where he's up there and feuding and everything like that in the interim.
All right. Trust the Process said, Dave reiterated last week how switching companies is often the best thing for people. Who were a couple of WWE or AEW talents that Dave thinks would be beneficial career-wise from switching over whenever their deal is up? I got one while you're thinking.
Okay, go ahead.
And the reason why I thought about this is because I think there's a quote from this person that is kind of in the wrestling media today, which is
Ricky
Montez Ford.
Maybe. That's an interesting one. Tony would have to go all the way with him.
Mm-hmm.
But he has talent, and he has been marginalized. Maybe, you know what? I could see him. Both of them even.
Yeah.
I mean, Dawkins too, because Dawkins is really talented, but it's always like everyone sees Montez as the big star.
He's got the bigger personality than Dawkins too.
Yeah. I mean, Dawkins is really great as that tag team partner, but they don't those guys are really good in the ring. I mean, when they started, they were all charisma and they were okay in the ring. Now they're like really good in the ring, but they've never been pushed at that level, for whatever reason. They've, they have charisma, but they've always been kind of typecast in, kind of that middle tag team spot as opposed to top guys. Like if Dawkins is in there with the top guys, nobody expects Dawkins can beat him. And the same with Montez, with both of them. But I mean,
you mentioned Starks. Aren't we of the impression that he's probably on his way out anyways?
I expect that. Yeah.
And he's got to go to the main roster to me. I don't want to see him go to NXT.
I agree. Yeah. But they may put him in NXT, or it depends. He's
blueprint of.
He is Cody's guy.
Yeah, of a Cody, someone related to Cody.
The thing is that Starks will come out on WWE television. The place will go nuts for him.
Yeah,
I mean, guaranteed that'll happen. So, I would say that and then the first run is the big one, and then you see how he hangs. But yeah, it's funny. But, a lot of the ones that, like John Moxley would be gigantic going back, but he's locked up for years and years and years. Young Bucks, but they're locked up for years and years and years too. And on the other side, obviously I think Bobby Lashley, which has just happened. I think that, and I don't know for sure because you just never know the legs of, someone comes in and they do really good, but sometimes it's like kind of that novelty of, we've seen him here and now we don't care. WWE had kind of marginalized him a lot more than they probably should have. And so him being in a place where if he's not marginalized, I think that this will be a good one for him.
And we talked about this guy last week, but AJ Styles, he could go and basically become kind of the replacement for Danielson in that role of just having the really good matches from someone who has a lot invested with that fan base because of how he came into the business. I think that would be a pretty good one too.
I think AJ Styles would do real well. I think Nakamura would do really well, but you just don't know with Nakamura.
You think
you don't know with what?
Do you think he would care enough to be that old?
Yeah, Nakamura? I mean that's exactly what I was going to say. Is like as a personality, it would be fresh, and he's been kind of like marginalized in WWE, but in AEW, yes. I mean, you have to work at a certain level, or people, because that's a very critical fan base, and if you're not, whatever. Whereas AJ, I know will be able to. So AJ, I think would, but I don't see AJ as doing it. I think I just sense, and I don't know the guy, but I know that, like, again, when AEW started, I mean, AJ they wanted him so bad, and I don't think he strongly considered it at all. And maybe at that point you just go like, why would I leave? I'm making real big money, and I don't know how much money I'm going to make there. And
it took him a long time to finally get there too. So you understand it from that perspective.
Right. But right now, I mean, yes, AJ Styles would probably, but I think that AJ Styles may want to be this guy that figures he's got a job for life. He's going to be an agent, he's going to be a legend, and he's going to be this and that. And why screw that up going to these other guys? And there's also that mentality that, there's not the sure thing. I mean, WWE's the sure thing. And even though AEW is a sure thing for the next 3 years, there's still that skepticism, that especially in the WWE side where everyone kind of, I don't say everyone, but enough people will talk about, they're going to die and they're not going to, you know what I mean? So, and you hear that enough and it's like, why take the risk when WWE is here to stay?
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes tough. And especially with AJ, being, late 40s, it's kind of like, is it time for me to stick my neck out? And it's probably no. Jericho did.
Mm-hmm.
But Jericho, look, that was the greatest thing Jericho ever did because, Jericho had been in that position in WWE where AJ is right now.
Yeah.
Of exactly where. And he revitalized his career, and he was younger than Jericho, when this thing started. And I think Jericho had more charisma in a lot of ways than AJ did, as far as Jericho did a great job in that first year in AEW. He was so important with the name credibility and the promos and everything like that. Whereas I don't know that AJ, would be, I mean, in the ring, he'd probably be as good, but I don't know that overall that he would, be able to carry the company.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that he would be in far more meaningful positions in AEW right now because everybody, they do like him and they do respect him. And in WWE, it's like, yeah, he could wrestle LA Knight, right? But that's different level. He could be higher in AEW.
A couple of international notes. Mexico Mystico vacated his middleweight title.
Yeah, I mean, he just basically, did the thing of, I've gained so much muscle and it's hard to make the weight. So, I'm giving up the weight class and, going for light heavyweight. I mean, it was, that's like one of the 6-year range, 6.5, I think 6.5 years. That's one of the longest title reigns, and granted, Mexico has a lot of champions. So it's not like Bruno Sammartino when there was only one champion, or Antonio Inoki, when he was like that. It is not the same thing, but still, the history of that middleweight title, that is, as far as I know, that is the oldest championship in professional wrestling because it started in 1938, and even the NWA world title started, I mean, they say in 48, but you could trace it to maybe 40. But I mean, this is the old, the NWA welterweight title, I think is 47 or something. Light heavyweight is, whatever. This is the oldest championship, and it's, you look at the names who've held that title, it's like the legends of all legends in Mexico. It's a big championship. And, but yeah, it was just, I mean, I didn't expect it. But it's kind of like, they get to do a tournament for the title, and he can go after, one of the light heavyweight titles now. It's something new.
And then we already mentioned this, but Omega's going to be at the Power Struggle show, which is
Monday.
Is it when is it going to be for us?
Sunday night at 10.
Okay.
So I am actually going to watch it Sunday night because it'll be over at 1:30. It's like actually like a decent hour to watch. So yeah, I can watch that one live.
You're not going to fall asleep?
If I do, I'm not falling asleep before 1. So, I'll probably only have a match or two to go at the end. I'll get it done. I don't, waking up Monday morning and having to go through that show is pretty tough because I have so many things that I do on Monday morning. So the idea of doing it on Sunday night is actually pretty cool. I hope that they, do more shows, because afternoon shows in Japan are pretty easy to watch here.
Mm-hmm.
When they're the usual night shows, then they start at, it'd be now with daylight savings time, they'd start at 1:30 a.m. That's just a little too late, unless it's Tokyo Dome. I mean, Tokyo Dome, they usually start early, but we've done that Tokyo Dome thing many a year.
Yeah, we do have to push the clocks back this weekend. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And then what is it? Zack Sabre and Shingo's main event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they have incredible matches, and it's a good show. A lot of title matches and everything. And I mean, I'm guessing when the show is over, we're going to know the Tokyo Dome main event.
Yeah,
because I expect Zack to win, and I expect somebody to come out, and I don't know who it'll be. I wonder where. I know a lot of people have been pushing the idea of Takeshita. Maybe it's going to be Omega.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. He's there, but I think Omega's there to push the tag match. But whatever. I just expect, because usually we know the Tokyo Dome main event in October. So, but they're, this time that they did the November title match. So I am pretty sure that we're going to know. I mean, not only that, but I think that we will know not the whole card, but I think we'll probably get about 3-4 matches on the card. I think we'll get the junior heavyweight match, whoever wins the tournament, going for the title, So I think that, by the way, Robbie Eagles and Kosei Fujita, who are in the finals against, talk about booking. Going into tomorrow's show, they had 6 teams in the B block, and they're all 2-2. So, talk about parity booking. I don't particularly like it, but I think this year it worked because there's so many, basically every single team's alive. But Robbie Eagles and Fujita ended up winning the A block. And those guys, they are a really good team because Fujita is like, he's one of those guys. He just, it's like he's small, but he's like really dynamic. And Robbie Eagles is just like an excellent wrestler. So they're like one of those, mixed Japanese American team, or it's Australian, but that foreigner and Japanese team thing, like Alex Shelley and Kushida used to do. I think I think they have a lot of potential long-term with that team, but the TMDK group, which is selling a lot of merch now, and they put Ryohei Oiwa and Fujita in that group. And the reason is Zach is going to, Zach's the number 1 guy in the world champion. And then you have those guys in the group, and Haston Nichols are the tag team champions. And I think that it's a way to kind of get them in a cool group and get them, because we know that they need those new Japanese superstars. And Oiwa's got the potential to be that. And Fujita is such a great worker, in a manner of which you get behind him. Like, he's just really good at you getting behind him. Like, I don't think he's like, compared to say Hiromu Takahashi, I don't think he'll ever be that. I don't think he'll ever have that charisma, but he'll be the guy that, you beat him down and the crowd will be with him, and he'll make the comeback, and he'll have great matches. And there's a role for that too in the junior heavyweight division, maybe someday in the heavyweight division too.
And then what is the Kota Ibushi DDT story?
He did shows, and some of the guys said stuff that maybe he took the wrong way. He asked for them to apologize. They wouldn't. And he's not with DDT anymore.
They're like deleting his matches or something off the
Yeah,
service?
I don't know if he insisted it. I don't know. Like, I was told it wasn't that big, but the fact that they're deleting his matches kind of tells me maybe it is. It feels like it's something like if they rubbed him the wrong way, and Takagi told them to apologize and they said no, That's like a really weird thing. And then there's that thing of like, oh, these Ibushi fans came and they weren't our fans. They all left and they all came back and everything, of like, they're not our real DDT fans. And it's kind of like, well, that's what happens when you bring someone from the past. And it's like, most people would say that's a good thing, bring back, old fans. But I don't know. It's a weird personality thing. And I don't understand all of it. I've heard both sides of it, but that still doesn't mean I'm not Japanese and I don't understand all of it.
I mean, I'm not equating the star power of both guys, but Dwayne's had to deal with this a bunch of different times, right? Every time he's come back.
Yeah, but with Dwayne, it's all kept quiet.
I guess. I seem to remember though that
Punk years and years and years.
Yeah, there was the Punk thing, but then it was almost like Punk was being the voice of everybody rather than just him.
Yeah, but Punk ended up being wrong because look at the buy rate they did. You know what I mean? And that's at the end of the day. In the days of pay-per-view, and that was in the days of pay-per-view, you go by who's going to draw the most on pay-per-view, and that was Dwayne. Dwayne and Cena had it. They did the biggest gross. I mean, the Trump show did more buys, but this was at a higher price. They did the biggest gross ever for that. And if you're a promoter and something does the biggest gross ever, you're going to rematch it.
Yeah.
And they did. And the other one did the second biggest ever. Mm-hmm. So it did bigger than Punk would have done. In the days of pay-per-view, that's what the decision is made on. Today, it's a different dynamic. Today, maybe there's an argument. And the fact is today, if it was then, they may not have made the pivot and just gone, screw you fans, you don't know. We got to sell this pay-per-view. And Dwayne's the biggest draw. But with the streaming, the way the deal is and everything like this, they acknowledged the fan base. And I think Dwayne also didn't want to get booed. Yeah. Unless he was a heel, because then he's controlling the audience. He's playing heel. So that's okay. And I think that, it wasn't so much we've got to maximize the number of buys for this pay-per-view because it's like that number's already guaranteed. Now we're just trying to put on a show where the crowd doesn't revolt and we all come out looking good, which is what they did.
Do you think they would? So we know that, the Peacock deal is the next one for them. Do you think they would ever go back to something like what the UFC is doing, where they would have to try and sell pay-per-views again?
I think they don't want to do that. If I was them, I wouldn't want to do it. I don't think AEW wants to do it, but the AEW, nobody's offering AEW the money to do that. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. But I think that Tony would absolutely love the idea that he gets this stuff guaranteed and he just has to crank it out. And, he doesn't have to worry about the number of buys. Pressure. There is less pressure. Yeah. But I don't think you want to do that. Plus, for the stock and everything, the stock market wants that guaranteed money.
Yeah, the predictableness.
The predictable, they don't want that up and down. Like, like when you have, whatever. I mean, like UFC got rid of that. UFC used to be, you got Conor and Ronda, giant year. Then they're gone. And then like, what are you going to do? Pay-per-views, one of your biggest revenue streams. And so, they don't have that problem anymore. By the way, as every week goes by, it's like that Conor McGregor broken toe story. Well, I have no doubt that he did have a toe injury. It's like, there is way more. You talk about something incredibly fishy at this point. I don't know if he doesn't want to fight. There's always going to be all the rumors, but that was in June. And, broken toe's not that serious. We're in November and we don't even have it's not even that he's not fighting this month. We don't even have a date, and it's like, Chandler's fighting somebody else, November 16th, he's fighting Oliveira. Why isn't he fighting Conor on November 16th? Well, I mean, I know why. They got John Jones on the show and they don't want to put Jones and Conor on the same show, but then why is he not on the show in December? I mean, they were going to go with Bilal Muhammad, who was also ended up injuring his foot and he's out.
Yeah. The Conor thing is wild. And I am of the opinion that he probably wakes up on some days and he's really, really excited to get back in the ring or the cage. And then he wakes up on other days and he's like, why do I need to train today?
Well, when you have that much money, I mean, if it was just the training, training can be fun, but not fight training. You know what I mean? Fight training is really tough. But the idea of going into a cage and getting someone to punch your face when you're that rich, it's kind of like, if you sit there and think about it, it's like, do I really need to do this?
He's also got to pass the drug test as well.
He's got to pass a drug test. He's not 27 years old anymore. He's put a lot of mileage on his body. He became a rich man, and you know, and he made all the mistakes of a guy who finds fame at a young age gigantic all at once, that I've seen with so many guys, and he's exactly fits that profile. And those guys, you know, when they get to be 37, they're not like Randy Couture. Not that Randy Couture was clean as a whistle or anything like that, but Randy Couture never had that success. You know,
not according to his book, by the way. His book, he was not clean as a whistle. Randy Couture's book.
Well, he wasn't. You know, I mean, but the point is that, but as far as the grind and the training, you know, he had that Olympic wrestler mentality when it came to training. I think Conor had a mentality when it came to training, but once he got super rich, and Randy never got super rich. Once he got super rich, it's kind of like, oh God, you know, once you get punched in the face when you're that rich, you know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. I saved this one for last. The Cody Rhodes interview about being in a vanity business and having to look a certain way, and people pay hundreds of dollars to watch him. And he said, hey, if I get out of shape, please body shame me. A lot of people did not take that very well, though. I find it interesting.
As a politician, which Cody is, I think he would. I think he hasn't told me. I think he would want to walk this one back.
Yeah.
However, I also think that he was saying exactly what he thinks. And I mean, that's the one thing, like when people ask me, it's like, I don't get mad at people telling the truth. And it's not, you know what I mean? It's not, I know the body shaming thing, but he didn't mean it as like body shaming in a certain way. He meant it as, look, you know, it's like, I'm a professional athlete and I work my ass off and all that. But I mean, it's funny because body shaming goes in so many different ways. I mean, it's not just, you know, being overweight. I mean, look at Adam Cole, you know, and, you know, I mean, I don't know the whole situation with Adam Cole, but I mean, I know he's had 1 million shoulder surgery. Well, not 1 million, but Adam Cole's had many shoulder problems. I'm sure that he cannot lift heavy anymore. And this is like what he naturally looks like.
He's naturally not a large person.
No, he's not. That's like, he was bigger when he was younger, because you know, when you're younger, you can lift heavier and you carry more mass. And now he's older.
Look, I think I have arthritis in my knees, my shoulders, and my elbows. Like this stuff does catch up to you at some point. And
you're not taking the beating that he's taken.
No, not at all.
You know, and so, but yeah, like
thankfully.
Yeah, I mean, my shoulders have been killing me since I was in my 30s. Not so much now, but you know, historically. But yeah, it's just, you know, I mean, it's. I mean, it was a subject last time. Now that he's back, and it was weird, you know, that Adam Cole reaction. You know, there's a lot to that Adam Cole reaction on Wednesday, and
you know, I thought it was weird that was going to be the first match that they went to, because when they did that face-off on Dynamite a couple weeks ago, I was like, this is an interesting one. By choosing Buddy as the guy, but
Malachi is even stranger, because Malachi's the one with the real charisma that people, even when he's a heel, they like. So that's going to be very interesting this Wednesday.
Yeah.
Crowd reaction. And you know, if it was a different situation, you could just go, well, just to turn him heel. He was a heel before and all that. But it's like they just started this build to Max, and Max doesn't want to go babyface. And goddamn, like you know, there was a time where I thought Max should be a babyface, and he was, and whatever. But this is not the time to do it again, you know, and not for a long time. So if they're going to go in this direction, Adam does have to be a babyface. So it's But being a babyface that the people, even if there's that just underlying booing in AEW is a tough one because of the nature of that audience. They're gonna, it's gonna become the cool thing, and it's hard to avert. I mean, maybe he can avert it. I remember, talking about certain aspects of Adam's return because he's trying to be a babyface when he left as a notorious heel, and it was kind of like, okay, you got to do that first interview. And I thought he did good in the first interview, but evidently it wasn't 100% because this happened, And I mean, it's like, and I thought that people know he's been out for over a year. I just thought that him going out there and selling the ankle in the first match, I just thought that was a terrible idea because when you go in there and the big thing is you're fragile, so you put that in everyone's head.
That's the word. Like I'm very much willing to see this one through, and maybe this is a 2024 way to get some sympathy on a babyface. But that word is. I mean, what if he gets hurt again? I
know, but I mean, the thing is like he should not be showing ankle weakness at all. He should be healthy because if the people think he's had all these surgeries and his ankle's about to go and he's a shell of himself, don't put that in people's minds. You know what I mean? That he's not as good as he was. Because what if he's not?
Yeah.
And then they're all sitting there going like, yeah, but he's right. They're telling everyone he's not the old Adam Cole. When they go in there with the storyline that you're not the old Adam Cole, you've got to be the old Adam Cole. Mm-hmm. You've got to be in your wins and in everything. And when you're not, you're basically saying he's right. And that's a problem. And I think that they just totally, I think that they thought, everyone knows he's hurt with the ankle and everything. So it's an easy thing to sell. But I remember when I watched it, I mean, it was immediate. It's like, no, this is not what you should do. And then as the match went on, it became more and more obvious. This direction's a bad direction.
Yeah. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was the best idea for him. And I don't know. I don't like that program. I know Max isn't around yet. So he, once he maybe gets involved 100%, maybe they heat it up. So right now it's Cole just kind of carrying it until then. But yeah, that one's I think it's going to be a little harder than they probably thought. But I guess got to see it through. Okay, so we're done. You're coming back with Brian on Saturday to recap Crown Jewel. I wanted to end this. I told Dave this off the air, but a friend of mine, I got a note today, a text message from his actual number. So I was kind of like, oh, wow, I get to talk to my friend again. I hadn't talked to him in a while. And it was actually a note from his brother saying that he had passed away of a heart attack. This man was my favorite boxing historian. His name was Robert Silva. He held... I know Robert Silva. Robert Silva's been a subscriber for, I mean, I don't know if he is now because it's electronic, but Robert Silva was a subscriber for decades to the Observer. He speaks of you very highly. He is more of a wrestling fan from like the 70s, 80s, 90s. He wasn't as much of a current wrestling fan, but boxing, R&B, music, pop culture, he was my go-to guy for anything boxing related. And I just wanted to give him a shout out. I just learned today he passed away, so my morning was kind of bad. And he always ended every conversation I had with him. He always ended it in the same exact way with 4 words. He used to say, "Take care, big man." So I wanted to shout out Robert Silva. Rest in peace, my friend, and take care, big man.
Yeah, I want to mention a guy named Frank Mott, who passed away. I actually just found out that this morning, and he was another guy who was a subscriber for decades. I mean, going way, way, way back, and went to Cauliflower Alley, and a big wrestling historian would write me and stuff all the time. Very good letters, very perceptive. And I found that out this morning. I didn't know. When you had told me the person, I didn't put, you said that you thought that I might have, that he was a subscriber and I might have known him, but I definitely knew him for a long, long time. Not like close friends or anyone that I don't recall talking to him, but I mean, as a subscriber and sending notes and things like that, absolutely. So it happens. When I always go out and see people and they go, I've subscribed to you for 40 years, 30 years. One of the offshoots is that, you have a lot of subscribers that were very young 40 years ago that pass away. And it's kind of, one of those sad things in a lot of ways.
Yeah. So if you are a boxing fan, you may have come across him on Twitter. So I just wanted to mention that. From what I gather, there's still a lot of people who haven't found out that happened, and I thought maybe I'll pass that message here, and people will know and be able to think about him and his family. So we'll end it there. Dave and Brian will be back tomorrow night after the pay-per-view or the PLE. So for Dave, I am Garrett. To everyone, thanks for watching and listening.